You do not deserve to sit here.
You don't belong in this seat. A white man's voice thundered across the cabin, his finger aimed at a black woman seated calmly with a magazine in hand. What seemed like a dispute over first class would soon unravel into a clash about power, prejudice, and truth. Flight number 47 to Miami, business class. A sharp thud echoed as a perfectly manicured hand slammed down on the armrest of seat 3A. "Excuse me, but I believe you're in my seat." Maya Washington looked up and closed the Forbes magazine in her hands. The 42-year-old woman wore a deep, navy-tailored blazer so elegant it could easily cost more than most people's monthly rent. On her finger, a diamond wedding ring sparkled under the cabin lights. Across from her stood Richard Sterling, about 50 years old, his polo shirt wrinkled, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He thrust out a crumpled boarding pass, his face flushed red. "This is seat 3A. I paid extra for this spot." Maya only lifted an eyebrow. She said nothing, made no move, her calm gaze steady, as though she held a secret the man above her could never know. Passengers nearby turned their heads, and the atmosphere snapped tight like a drawn bowstring. In that moment, Maya's silence became her greatest weapon. "Listen, I don't know whose suit you borrowed, but..." Sterling lowered his voice, deliberately threatening, stepping closer and leaning on his height to intimidate her. Maya didn't flinch. Her fingers pinched the magazine tightly. The only motion she made was a subtle tilt of her head, a gesture of quiet defiance that left everyone holding their breath. "Is there a problem here?" A clear voice cut through the tension. It was Jessica Chen, a 28-year-old Stanford MBA student seated in 3B. She glanced up from her laptop, the discomfort in Sterling's tone striking her immediately. "There's no problem," Sterling snapped, not bothering to look at her. "Just someone who doesn't understand seating arrangements." Jessica's instincts took over. She'd seen enough viral clips to know what was coming. With a single tap, she could go live on TikTok. Sterling's voice grew louder, tinged with mockery. "I think she's confused. This woman seems to believe she deserves to sit in business class." The word struck like an invisible slap. Maya's jaw tightened, barely noticeable, but sharp eyes could see it. The overhead speakers crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, our flight will be delayed 15 minutes due to a seating issue." Sterling's face lit up, smug. "See? You've delayed the entire flight." At that moment, Patricia Jones, an experienced flight attendant with more than 20 years on the job, stepped into the aisle, wearing a strained smile. But her trained eyes immediately fixed on Maya. Sterling jabbed a finger toward her, raising his voice. "She's clearly in the wrong seat." Maya calmly retrieved her boarding pass from her wallet and handed it over. Patricia's practiced eyes scanned it, and her brows furrowed slightly. "Madam, this is indeed seat 3A. "That's impossible," Sterling barked, but Maya had already tucked her pass away. For a split second, Jessica's live stream caught a crucial detail: the words "Platinum Elite" printed in gold at the top of Maya's ticket. Sterling muttered excuses. Maybe she'd been upgraded last minute. The digital board flashed. 14 minutes until departure. Maya's phone buzzed. A subject line glowed on the screen: "Board meeting agenda. Miami acquisition." She locked the phone quickly, but Jessica's camera had already captured it. "Sir, may I see your ticket?" Patricia asked. Sterling handed it over proudly. "Seat 3A. I bought it months ago." Patricia compared the two passes, her frown deepening. "Sometimes our system duplicates bookings. It happens." "Then she should move," Sterling cut in immediately. "I got here first." Jessica spoke from the seat beside them. "Excuse me, but when I boarded, she was already sitting there. I've been here for 20 minutes. Her phone kept recording, the viewer count climbing from 23 to 50, then over 80. Patricia turned back to Maya, lowering her voice. "Madam, would you mind if we arranged another seat for you? Perhaps in first class?" For the first time, Maya spoke. Her voice was soft, yet precise. "I feel comfortable here." "Ridiculous," Sterling barked. Some people just don't know their place. The words dropped like poison into the cabin air, chilling everyone to silence. Jessica caught the flicker in Maya's eyes. Her composure wasn't shaken, but something else sparked within her. A calculation, as if she was weighing something far larger than a single seat. With 11 minutes until takeoff, Patricia tried again. "Sir, please lower your voice." But her authority trembled. More passengers pulled out their phones. What had been a quiet business-class cabin was now a stage for chaos. A businessman in 4C leaned toward his neighbor and muttered, "I've seen this before." Sterling smirked, sure of victory. At that moment, the cockpit door opened, and Captain Brooks, 55 years old, a veteran pilot, stepped out, clearly annoyed. Delays meant endless paperwork, angry passengers, and ruined schedules. "What's going on?" he asked. Patricia quickly explained. "Double booking, seat 3A, Captain." Brooks's eyes shifted between Maya and Sterling. The subtle bias was visible. An agitated white man versus a composed black woman. For a brief moment, he leaned toward Sterling. "Madam," Brooks said to Maya, "I need you to either move to your assigned seat or explain." Sterling grinned, certain he'd won. Maya rose slowly, drawing every gaze in the cabin. On Jessica's live stream, the viewer count passed 200, but Maya didn't step out. Instead, she reached for her leather briefcase in the overhead bin. At that instant, Flight Supervisor Martinez arrived from the gate, clipboard in hand. With 15 years of experience resolving disputes, she had seen almost everything. Yet the crowd pressed around the business class aisle told her this was different. The board above blinked. 8 minutes until departure. Martinez asked swiftly, "How bad is the delay? This passenger refuses to move." Brooks gestured at Maya. Meanwhile, Jessica's stream surged past 500 viewers. Sterling raised his voice again, pouring fuel on the fire. "I've been patient enough. I have an important meeting in Miami. I can't miss this flight because of some mistake." Maya stood still, clutching her briefcase like stone amid the storm. "Madam," Martinez addressed her firmly, "if you cannot present valid documentation for this seat, we'll have to ask you to leave the plane." Gasps rippled through the cabin. Even economy passengers craned their necks to watch. A businesswoman in 2C live-streamed to Twitter, where the hashtag #EdFlight was already starting to trend locally. "I have my ticket," Maya replied softly. Sterling cut in. "Clearly, there's a mistake. I paid for this seat a long time ago. I need it. And to be blunt, I don't think she belongs here." His words dropped like ice into the cabin, chilling everyone. Jessica's phone captured every second. Viewers erupted in anger, comments pouring in. "Sir, that remark is inappropriate." Patricia's voice trembled. "Inappropriate?" Sterling shot back. "What's inappropriate is delaying an entire flight because some people don't know the rules." Brooks checked his watch, his voice flat. "Madam, I have to ask you to leave the plane immediately." "We can resolve this at the gate." Jessica spoke up suddenly, her camera pointed straight at him. "You can't be serious. I'm live streaming. Over 800 people are watching you allow this woman to be harassed." Sterling's face drained of color. "Harassment? I haven't harassed anyone. I'm just protecting the seat I rightfully paid for." The man in seat 4C leaned forward. "I've seen this before. Someone gets upgraded without deserving it, then causes chaos when they're caught." Maya's knuckles turned white as she clutched her briefcase strap, yet her face remained calm. "That's enough," Brooks snapped. "Security is on the way. You have 30 seconds to pack your things and leave the aircraft voluntarily. We depart in 5 minutes." The cabin sank into absolute silence, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. More than 60 passengers watched, phones raised from every angle. Sterling smiled, convinced he had won. "A shame it had to come to this," he said to Maya, without the faintest hint of apology. Maya lifted her gaze, locking eyes with him. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, not warmly, but with the cold precision of a chess player about to deliver checkmate. "Captain Brooks," her voice rang clear across the cabin. "Before you call security, you should see this." She opened her briefcase and drew out a folder stamped with official letterhead and signatures, handing it to the captain. Brooks's face shifted rapidly, confusion, recognition, then shock. He froze in place, as though struck by lightning. "Ms. Washington," he whispered. I had no idea." Patricia leaned over, caught sight of the document, and gasped, "Oh my God." Sterling stood stunned. "What is it? What did she show you?" Jessica murmured into her phone. "Everyone, something just happened. The captain looks like he's seen a ghost." Maya calmly returned the papers to her case, sat back in seat 3A, crossed her legs, and reopened Forbes magazine. "It's just my ID," she said evenly. Brooks stared at her, as if she were a live bomb in the cabin. Sterling grew impatient. "What's going on? Who is she?" Brooks choked out. "Mrs. Washington, I owe you a sincere apology." "We all do." Sterling's voice cracked in confusion. "Washington? Which Washington?" Maya raised her eyes at last. "Maya Washington, president of Meridian Investment Group." Sterling blinked, lost, but the entire crew went pale. Martinez frantically searched her phone, whispering over and over, "Oh God, oh God." Jessica read aloud the comments flooding her live stream. Now with more than 1,500 viewers, Meridian Investment Group owns half the airline industry. Maya Washington is on Forbes' power list. Her net worth is $2 billion. Sterling finally heard it, stammering, That's impossible." Maya looked up from her magazine, her tone cutting like a blade. "In fact, Meridian Investment Group holds 67% controlling interest in transatlantic airlines." Her words crashed down on the cabin like a physical weight. Sterling's mouth fell open, his eyes wide. "That means?" Maya tilted her head, her voice calm, steely. "That means I'm your boss. Actually, I'm everyone's boss here." Captain Brooks looked as if he wanted to vanish into thin air. "Ms. Washington, if I had known, that's exactly the problem." Maya cut him off, her tone sharp as glass. "If you had known, you would have treated me differently. And that is the problem." At last, she folded her magazine, her gaze sweeping across every face, every phone, every witness who had seen it all unfold. "The real question now," she said, her voice echoing across the cabin, "is what are we going to do about this?" Sterling stammered incoherently. Maya's smile was thin, razor sharp. "Mr. Sterling, I believe you're the one sitting in my seat." The cabin fell into deathly silence. Sterling's face flickered like a broken traffic light. Confusion, disbelief, then fear. No way, she's just bluffing." Maya opened her briefcase again and pulled out a thick binder, handing it to Captain Brooks. "These are the board minutes from Transatlantic Airlines meeting last week. Page 3 records the vote on acquiring Regional Connect Airways. That is my signature." Brooks skimmed the pages, his complexion turning from pale to ashen. Maya spoke evenly, each word striking like a hammer. Page 7 details the acquisition deal, worth $2.3 billion. As of now, Meridian Investment Group controls 67% of Transatlantic's shares. Last quarter alone, we reported revenue of $847 million. The market value of my firm's holdings exceeds $3.2 billion. Martinez held the report gingerly, as if it were radioactive. "Ms. Washington, I don't know how to apologize enough." Maya arched an eyebrow. "Can't apologize?" Interesting choice of words. Jessica's live stream exploded, viewers climbing past 3,000. Comments flew. "She really owns the airline. This is the best twist I've ever seen." Sterling shook his head furiously. "This is a scam. Nobody can just walk onto a plane and claim to own it." Maya pulled out her phone. On the screen was her contacts list. Transatlantic CEO, Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer. She tilted her head slightly, her tone playful. "Would you like me to call one of them?" Sterling's voice grew harsher. Even if you are who you say you are, that doesn't give you the right to sit in my seat. Maya corrected him, each word deliberate. Your seat? On my airline? The one I'm testing? The words landed like a sledgehammer. Brooks closed his eyes, likely calculating his retirement. Patricia whispered faintly, testing? Maya nodded. Every month, I fly commercial, unannounced, to see how customers are really treated. And today, I've gathered some very interesting data. Sterling began to understand, his face draining of color. Maya rose to her feet, her voice carrying through the cabin. This is the 4th time I've witnessed racial discrimination on a transatlantic flight this year. The first 3 involved passengers who couldn't fight back, but today, I refuse to remain silent. The hashtag #HatFlight began trending nationwide. Maya fixed her gaze on Sterling. You threatened passengers. You made racist assumptions. You delayed this flight and created a hostile environment. Sweat poured down Sterling's face as he stammered, I'm sorry, I really am, I was wrong. Why? You made many mistakes, and every single one of them is recorded. She pointed at Jessica's phone. More than 4,700 people have just watched you discriminate against me. This video is being shared across every platform. Desperate, Sterling pleaded, please stop, my job, my reputation. You should have thought about that earlier, Maya replied coolly. Then she turned to the captain. Mr. Brooks, how does transatlantic normally handle passengers who harass others? Brooks swallowed hard, his voice rough. We have a zero-tolerance policy. Disruptive passengers can be permanently banned from flying. Good, Maya said, her eyes never leaving Sterling. Mr. Sterling, as of this moment, you are permanently banned from all transatlantic airlines flights. It was as if Sterling had been slapped. No, you can't. You don't have that authority. Maya tilted her head, her tone like steel. I can do whatever I want. This is my airline. She then turned to Patricia. And you, before even investigating, you assumed I was the problem. You unconsciously deferred to Mr. Sterling's authority. Do you realize how that looks to other passengers of color? Patricia broke down in tears, her voice choked. I'm so sorry, Ms. Washington. I never meant. Intentions don't matter, Maya cut her off coldly. Impact does, and the impact is that you made a paying passenger feel unwelcome on her own airline. Maya's eyes swept across the cabin. Every one of you here witnessed the bias. You saw the airline staff side quickly with an aggressive white man rather than a quiet black woman. Her words sliced through the air like a blade. Many passengers lowered their heads in shame. This, Maya continued, is what systemic racism looks like. It doesn't need torches or slurs. It just needs assumptions. The default belief that one person is more credible than another based solely on appearance. All I am. One made a final, desperate attempt. I'll apologize. I'll do it publicly. I'll do whatever you want. Just please, don't destroy my life. Maya studied him for a long moment, her voice low and steady. You tried to ruin my day because you thought I didn't belong here. You used the power you thought you had to intimidate me. You made racist comments in front of dozens of witnesses. And your first concern isn't that you were wrong, it's that you'll face consequences. Sterling's shoulders sagged. He understood there was no way out. But Maya surprised everyone. I don't want to destroy you personally. I want to prevent this from happening again. She turned to address the cabin. Everyone here learned something today. That appearances can be deceiving, that speaking up matters, and that every action has consequences. Jessica's live stream had nearly 10,000 viewers now, with comments flooding in anger, support, admiration. Maya looked straight at the young woman. Thank you for recording this. Your courage made a difference, Jessica blushed. I just did what felt right. Exactly, Maya said, smiling faintly. And that's what all of us should do. She turned to Brooks. I want to meet your management team in Miami. We need to discuss immediate policy changes. Of course, Ms. Washington, Brooks answered quickly. Whatever you need. And as for Mr. Sterling, Maya added, you'll be escorted off this plane upon landing. Security is already waiting. Sterling nodded weakly, his fight gone. Maya sat back in seat 3A, reopened Forbes, and said brightly, now then, I think we should take off. Brooks hurried back to the cockpit. Patricia made a frantic call to Miami. Martinez contacted headquarters. The cabin slowly quieted, but the energy was completely different. Everyone was still processing what had just happened. Jessica's stream passed 15,000 viewers, the story spreading like wildfire across social media. Sterling was moved to the very back of the plane, flanked by 2 air marshals. Meanwhile, in the business class galley, Maya sat across from Brooks, Martinez, and Patricia. Ms. Washington, Brooks began, I want to offer my personal apology. Maya raised her hand, cutting him off. Captain, I'm not interested in apologies. I'm interested in solutions. She opened her briefcase, pulled out a notebook, and calmly jotted down figures. Last quarter, Transatlantic Airlines reported revenue of $847 million. The current stock price is $127 a share. My firm owns 67% of the equity, roughly $3.2 billion in controlling value. She looked up, her voice firm. On average, federal discrimination lawsuits against airlines carry settlements of about $2.8 million. And viral videos like this usually cause stock prices to drop 12 to 18% within 48 hours. At our current valuation, that's a potential loss of $380 million in market capitalization. Brooks scribbled notes furiously, his face pale. What do you need us to do? Maya didn't hesitate. A complete policy overhaul. I want a new anti-discrimination protocol in place within 30 days. Maya sat upright, her voice carrying the weight of an undeniable command. Within 30 days, every employee who interacts directly with customers must complete mandatory training on unconscious bias. I also want a direct reporting system, skipping middle management and going straight to the board of directors. Her eyes swept across the room. Today's incident proves the system is broken. You all assumed the white passenger was right. Not one of you questioned Mr. Sterling's behavior until I was forced to reveal my identity. Patricia choked back tears. I'm sorry, Mrs. Washington. Maya fixed her gaze on her. Patricia, how long have you worked at Transatlantic? 22 years. And in those 22 years, how many black passengers have you seen in business class? Patricia froze, then whispered, not many. Maya nodded, her tone calm but unyielding. That's exactly what triggered your unconscious bias. You assumed I was the problem, and that is what must be corrected. She turned to Martinez. I want an app that allows passengers to report discriminatory behavior directly to the board. No middle management. Yes, ma'am. When do you need it? It should have been here yesterday. But I'll give you until next week. Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and smiled. A call from the Department of Transportation. She put it on speaker. Hello, Mrs. Washington. This is David Chen from the Office of Civil Rights, a man's voice said. We've been following this incident on social media. Is now a good time to discuss the timeline of our investigation? Maya looked around the galley, where the crew sat stiffly. Perfect timing. I think everyone here is ready to cooperate. Excellent, David replied. We'll need to interview all relevant staff and review your new policies before implementation. Tomorrow? Maya asked. I'll be flying back to Miami tonight. Tomorrow works. Maya ended the call, then turned to the crew. Don't be afraid. This is an opportunity, not a punishment. We will solve this thoroughly. She laid out the plan. Sterling will be permanently banned from flying and added to the industry's no-fly list. Patricia, you'll undergo mandatory training and join our new Customer Service Excellence program. Captain Brooks, you'll work directly with our new Diversity and Inclusion Officer. I want monthly reports on discrimination complaints, quarterly diversity audits, and annual reviews of our hiring process. Most importantly, every employee must understand that discrimination has real consequences, not just for the victim, but for the company. She raised her head, her voice steady and heavy as stone. Our stock price has already dropped 8% after hours, but it will recover once I announce these new policies. She stood, her eyes piercing each crew member. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed history. You've seen how quickly discrimination can escalate. You've seen how social media amplifies injustice. And most importantly, you've seen how power can be used responsibly. Captain Brooks drew in a deep breath. What's the timeline, ma'am? 30 days for policy, 60 days for training, 90 days for structural reform. And 1 year from today, I expect Transatlantic to be the most inclusive airline in America. When the plane landed in Miami, Maya returned to her seat, leaving the crew in heavy silence. Jessica kept streaming, her audience climbing past 23,000, the story spreading like wildfire. Maya reopened her Forbes magazine, a faint smile on her lips. Phase 1 was complete. 6 months later, at Transatlantic's Miami headquarters, Maya stood in the boardroom reviewing the quarterly discrimination report. The numbers spoke for themselves. Complaints had dropped by 89%, customer satisfaction had risen by 34%, and the stock price hit an all-time high. Employee training completion rate? Maya asked. 100%, ma'am, replied Sarah Kim, the new Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. 3 employees who failed the program were dismissed. The passenger reporting app has been downloaded 340,000 times. Quarterly diversity audits are now conducted by external consultants, and our zero-tolerance policy has been tested and enforced. Maya nodded. Impact on the industry? 4 major airlines, United, Delta, American, and Southwest, have referenced our program in their own diversity initiatives, Sarah said. Maya's phone buzzed again. Transatlantic had just been named the most inclusive airline by the Civil Rights Coalition. Harvard Business School turned the story into a case study. The book, Leadership in Crisis, The Maya Washington Method, became required reading in 3 MBA courses. Jessica Chen, once just an MBA student, now had more than 2.3 million TikTok followers and was consulting for Fortune 500 companies on diversity. The ripple effect keeps spreading, Sarah concluded. Maya smiled. On that one flight, she had turned an act of discrimination into a turning point for an entire industry, and it all began with a single business class seat labeled 3A. Jessica's documentary about the incident premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and received a standing ovation. Maya, meanwhile, continued her unannounced test flights every month, but rarely encountered discrimination anymore. The system was working. One afternoon, a knock came at her office door. "Someone is here to see you," her assistant said. Richard Sterling walked in. He looked older, humbled, the arrogance drained from his face. "Mr. Sterling," Maya gestured toward a chair. He sat cautiously. "This time, I've come to apologize truly," he said, voice low. "I've spent 6 months reflecting on the assumptions, the privileges I thought I had. I was wrong, completely wrong, and I want to make amends." He explained how he had partnered with the NAACP to run diversity training and had spoken at 3 corporate conferences on unconscious bias. "A new direction for your career," Maya remarked. Sterling nodded. "I lost my job after the video went viral, but it forced me to face uncomfortable truths about myself." He handed her a letter. "This is a formal apology, and I'd like to contribute $50,000 to the Transatlantic Diversity Scholarship Fund." Maya skimmed the letter. It was heartfelt, detailed. "This is a start," she said, "but words and money aren't enough. What will you do to change the system that produced your behavior?" Sterling straightened, his eyes resolute. "Next month, I'll testify before the House Transportation Committee about discrimination in the airline industry. Maya gave the faintest smile before returning to her financial reports. The numbers were impressive, but the true victory was cultural. Transatlantic had become the model for corporate accountability. Her phone rang. "Mrs. Washington, this is Anderson Cooper's office. We'd like to schedule a follow-up interview about your airline reforms." "Next Tuesday," Maya replied. The story wasn't over. It was only beginning. She had proven that one moment of courage could transform an entire industry. Sometimes, the greatest power is consistency. 2 years later, Maya's story was legend. The video of her calm confrontation with Sterling had been viewed 47 million times. It was analyzed in business schools, cited in congressional hearings, and became the foundation for federal anti-discrimination reform. Transatlantic Airlines was honored as the gold standard of inclusive corporate culture. Other industries began adopting the Washington Protocol, a systematic framework for rooting out bias. Maya's strength hadn't come from anger or revenge, but from strategic patience and systemic reform. She turned humiliation into transformation. The ripple effect kept growing. Jessica's documentary, Seat 3A, won an Emmy. Sterling's redemption arc became a best-selling memoir. Even Patricia Jones became a diversity trainer, using her own experience to help colleagues recognize unconscious bias. But Maya's proudest achievement wasn't awards or titles. It was the letters she received from Black passengers who now felt welcome on board, from young Black executives who said her story gave them courage to speak up, from white allies who learned to use privilege to protect others. In a TED Talk, Maya shared, "Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Let others reveal themselves. Document everything. And then use your voice strategically." Her story became a lesson in silent power, the kind that doesn't need to shout, yet echoes far and wide. Maya Washington proved that courage takes many forms. Sometimes it's speaking up. Sometimes it's holding silence. And sometimes it's using your influence to shield others. And what about you? Have you ever witnessed discrimination at work, in your community, or while traveling? Your voice matters. Your record can become the evidence that sparks change. Share your story with those who need to hear it. Comment your experiences in standing up to injustice, and subscribe for more stories about the quiet heroes, those who refuse to accept the unacceptable. Because in a world still full of Richard Sterlings, we need more Maya Washingtons.